Well, if you would, go ahead and take your Bibles and open up to the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1. Ecclesiastes, chapter 1. If you're not sure where the book of Ecclesiastes is, you can open up your Bible to the middle, probably find yourself somewhere in the book of Psalms or the book of Proverbs, and then just start flipping to the right. You go Psalms, Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes, chapter 1. Life is a funny thing sometimes. It's a funny thing, and in many ways, life can be a very frustrating thing, in large part because it so often exceeds our ability to comprehend it, to understand it. Life is full of twists and turns that we cannot anticipate. It's marked by events that we do not understand, and in so many ways, life appears to have a life of its own. Kind of just progresses and goes along seemingly completely out of our control. You know, your hours are very long, maybe this hour in particular, but days feel very short, and years feel even shorter. Our days are full, but none of us can hardly remember what we did last week. Despite all the thought and energy and anxiety we pour into the things that fill up our lives, when we step back, most of them can seem so very trivial. If you think too hard about it, you might begin to wonder, what is the point of all this? What is the point of all the stuff that happens in my life? What is the point? I mean, what is the point of all the laundry that you do? There will be more laundry. You realize that, right? No matter how much you do, there will be more. What is the point of all the leaves that you're going to rake up this fall? Like next year, around this time, you will rake leaves again. What is the point of your high school English lit class? Like, none of you remember Othello. I know none of you do. What was the point? What's the point of all the hours that you have spent in the DMV? Right? What's the point of all? What is the point of all the experiences and all the relationships and all the joys and all the sorrows that are all encapsulated in your 70 years of existence on this planet? What's the point of all of it? Those are the kind of questions that plague our culture. A culture in which people wrestle with a sense of purposelessness. They can't make sense of what's going on in their lives. They ask the question why, but they can't find any answers. I mean, if you Google Gen Z and purposelessness, you will find dozens of articles. Young people in our society feel like they are floating through life. Nothing to tether them to reality. No sense of purpose, no sense of fulfillment, no answers to the questions why. And it's not surprising because we as a society have stripped away the transcendent, only to find that the imminent doesn't give us the answers that we seek. It's a culture with record rates of depression and anxiety, a culture obsessed with pointless pleasures meant to distract from the deeper questions. For so many, it feels like life is this huge mass with this like gaping hole right in the center of it. I don't think this is a feeling that's new or novel in any way. In the early 17th century, William Shakespeare put these words into the mouth of Macbeth, that tragic king, in the moment that he found out that his wife had died. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Now, obviously, for us Christians, this isn't the case, right? We never ask why. We never ask why things happen the way that they happen. We never have questions about the purpose of all the experiences that make up our lives. We never wonder what God is doing behind the scenes. We never ask why, right? Wrong. Of course we ask why. In fact, in some ways, I think the problem is actually more difficult for us Christians because we believe in a God who is meticulously sovereign. That means that he is in absolute control and ordains every single detail in every single moment in every corner of the universe, at all times and in all places. And so we know that there's supposed to be a reason for everything that happens. God doesn't do anything randomly or purposelessly, and yet the why behind the what so often eludes us. In many ways, life can appear to be, as Solomon would say, vanity. This past Friday, I woke up and decided that I wanted to go get a coffee. And so I started to go, and of course, my two boys were like, "Dad, can we come?" And I was like, "Of course, I would love for you to come with me to get a coffee. I'm getting a coffee. Nothing could ruin this moment." And so we pile into my wife's van, and we drive to the coffee shop, and I get my coffee, and we come back, and I drop the boys off. I have to get to work, and so I grab my car, and I drive, and I park here, and I get out of my car, and I start to walk into my office, and I reach into my pocket to lock my car, and I find 2 sets of keys. I had stolen my wife's keys from her, which wouldn't be a big deal if we had 2 sets of keys for her car, which of course we don't, because we're such good planners. And in that moment, I asked why. Why, God, would you make me drive 20 more minutes? I'm here to serve you. Why would you do this? Why? It could seem so pointless. Now, as Christians, we ask the question, why? We want to understand the why behind the what. And I would argue that the book of Ecclesiastes is a part of God's inspired word because God knew that his people would ask those kinds of questions. He knew that we would wrestle with the reality of life in a fallen world, a life east of Eden but west of paradise. I think in many ways the book of Ecclesiastes is the wisdom that we need to live life that is full in a fallen world. One commentator noted that the book of Proverbs teaches you how to behave, and the book of Psalms teaches you how to worship. The book of Job teaches you how to suffer. The book Song of Songs teaches you how to love, but the book of Ecclesiastes teaches you how to live. And it is the wisdom that we need to live a full life in a fallen world. Now, I will admit that the first step to a full life is a painful one. The medicine is bitter. Because before you can live life well, you must first understand that what makes life full is in part acknowledging the harsh reality of the life that we live, the harsh reality of life in a fallen world east of Eden, where things don't always make sense. And so that's where we're going to be this morning, Ecclesiastes chapter 1. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, "See, this is new"? It has been already in ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. Those are the words of King Solomon, the words of an old man who learned wisdom about life the hard way. If you know the story of Solomon, you can read about it in the book of 1 Kings. Solomon begins his reign as king over Israel really well. He loves the Lord wholeheartedly. When God offers him anything that he would ask, he desires wisdom so that he can live well. And God blesses him, and he blesses Solomon. But at some point in Solomon's life, his heart was turned away from the Lord. And he began to run from the Lord, and he sought to live life under the sun, as though God was not there, seeking to find all that he wanted and all that he needed, satisfaction, fulfillment, joy, happiness, all of it from this life and this world. And then at some point in his latter years, he realized his mistake. And he pens the book of Ecclesiastes as an old man with gray hair writing to young people, urging them not to repeat the foolish mistakes that he made, urging them to live well in a fallen world. And at the very beginning of his book, he gives us his thesis statement about life. You see it in verse 2. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. You see in that one word, in many ways, the idea that encapsulates life for Solomon, vanity. It's the Hebrew word Hebel. It's used 5 times in this verse, 38 times in the book. Now, if you're sitting there and you have an NIV in your lap, which, we'll pray for you. But if you have an NIV in your lap, the way that the NIV translates this word is meaningless. So it would read something like this. Meaninglessness of meaninglessness, says the preacher. Utter meaninglessness. All is meaningless. All is meaningless. I think that translation has caused a lot of confusion over what Solomon is saying. Solomon here is portrayed as something of a nihilist who believes that nothing matters, everything is pointless, there's no meaning in anything that he does or says or thinks, and so eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you die. It's all pointless anyways. That's not what Solomon is saying. It's what we call a bad translation. In chapter 2, Solomon will commend wisdom over folly. He says that there is more to gain in wisdom than is folly. Wisdom is better than folly because it matters. In chapter 9, he will advocate for all sorts of good things because they're better, they matter. Things matter to Solomon. He's not saying that life is meaningless. That's because Hebel doesn't mean meaningless. It's not what it means. It's a word that no one English word can really capture. Its meaning, its significance, no one English word really does it justice. But it has the idea of transience, of brevity, of ephemerality. I think the best way to understand it is to just say it. If you'll hold your hand in front of your mouth, and go ahead, hold your hand in front of your mouth. This is the participation part of the sermon. If you'll hold your hand in front of your mouth and you'll say, Hebel, go ahead. You did so good. You can feel your breath on your hand, right? That's Hebel. It's like a breath. Hebel is that idea that is behind walking out of your house on a cold fall morning and breathing a warm breath into the cold air. You can see it for a moment, and then as soon as it's there, it's already gone. It's so brief, it's so short, it's so transient, it's like a breath. It's as if Solomon is saying, merest of breaths, all is the merest of breaths. He's saying life is like the merest of breaths. In that one profound word, and in these verses that follow, I think Solomon forces us to grapple with some really hard truths about life. And the first is this, that life is fleeting. Life is fleeting. Psalm 39, verse 5, behold, you have made my days a few handbreadths, and my lifetime is as nothing before you. Surely all mankind stands as a mere breath. Hebel. Psalm 144, verse 4. Man is like a breath. Hebel. His days are like a passing shadow. When you say the word Hebel, you can hear the name Abel, a life that was cut short, a life that was too brief. Life is fleeting. Your life is like a breath on a cold winter morning, there one moment, gone the next. It's fleeting, it's short. N.D. Wilson, I think, captures the idea well. He writes in Genesis 3, after spiritual and physical rebellion, we have the levying of great curses. God tells Eve that he will multiply greatly her sorrows in childbirth, and the itchiness of marriage shows up as well. Adam is given toil and sorrow all the days of his life. The kicker here is not the toil and not even the sorrow. All the days of his life. His life now has days. Welcome to mortality and the ticking clock. You will struggle and you will mourn and you will end. Dust you are, and to dust you return. The great curse of Genesis 3 is that man now measures his life in days. His life has an endpoint. His life has a terminus. His life now is but a breath. There one moment, gone the next. In verse 4, Solomon sets our life in the proper context of history. He says, a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. One generation comes, another one comes along, one generation goes, another one takes its place, and the earth keeps on spinning and time keeps on ticking. And then look what he says in verse 11. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. I mean, think of all the lives that are represented by a generation. Millions and millions of lives, full of countless experiences, an inconceivable amount of moments that to those individual people felt so significant and so meaningful. And yet, in the grand scheme of history, that whole generation will pass away, and all those experiences and all those moments will go away, and no one will remember any of it. It's all gone. The merest of breaths. There is no remembrance of former things. All those experiences that seem so significant, so meaningful, all of them will be forgotten. In 1817, the poet Percy Shelley and his wife were discussing with a friend of theirs some of the recent archaeological discoveries that had been made in Egypt in the decades following Napoleon's conquest of the region. They were remarking about how the power of ancient Egypt had once seemed eternal. The idea that the pharaohs of Egypt would ever cease, that the might of this incredible empire would ever go away was unthinkable. And yet by that time, that once great empire had long been in ruins, a feeble shadow of its former self. And as he reflected on this in the later days, Percy penned the poem Ozymandias. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level strands of sand stretch far away. Even the mightiest work of the mightiest king is forgotten. Nothing lasts. Everything, as it were, is lost beneath the sands of time. Because time really is the great equalizer, right? Given enough time, everyone will die and everything will decay and all of it will be forgotten. Because life is fleeting. It's as though we spend our lives walking back and forth on the beach, leaving footprints in the sand. And the reality is that no matter how much you walk back and forth, no matter how many footprints you leave, eventually, over time, waves will come in and wash your footprints away, and they will not be remembered. Because life is fleeting. And yet, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, Solomon tells us that He has put eternity into man's heart. That is, we long for something that lasts. We long for something that's eternal, that's timeless, that extends beyond this life. We desire it deep down in our bones, but we cannot find it here in this life because this life is fleeting. Because this life is but the merest of breaths. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Think about all that you invest in this life. We have eternity in our hearts, but in so many ways we live for the here and the now. The things that we worry about, the things that make us anxious, the things that concern us, the things that frustrate us. So often they are so temporary, so fleeting, not lasting. But we care so much about them. And we demand that the things that this life is full of, that they would fulfill us, that they would fill us, that they would satisfy us. But they just can't. I mean, how could something so short and so temporary and so transient ever fill that eternity-shaped hole in our hearts? This life is not meant to fulfill us because this life is short. It does not last. It's why John tells us, do not love the world or the things of the world. Why? Because the world is passing away. It doesn't last. It can't give you what you need. This life is fleeting. And secondly, this life is repetitive. This life is repetitive. Look at verse 5. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. The world is an essentially unchanging place. In Romans chapter 8, Paul says that the whole creation was subjected to futility. It's the Greek word mataiotes, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew word hebel, futility. The creation is always hard at work, toiling constantly. The sun rises and then it sets only to rise again. And the winds are constantly blowing around the world, but they just blow in the same patterns, in the same circuits, day after day after day, year after year after year. The streams are constantly running into the sea, but the sea never fills up. The streams are always flowing to where they have always been flowing. Nothing really changes. The entire creation is repetitive, cyclical, stuck in a cycle that it cannot escape. There is nothing new under the sun that breaks this rule. Jean-Baptiste Alphonse Carr, speaking shortly after the French Revolution, said this: "The more things change, the more they stay the same. There's nothing new under the sun." And the massive reality of creation thus critiques, one author says, the aspirations of all those tiny mortal beings who stand within creation as transient creatures. There is no reason to assume that individuals should gain from their toil when creation as a whole does not. In other words, we as human beings are to look at the created order and see its repetitiveness and its cyclicalness, the fact that there is never anything produced, never anything gained, that it's stuck in this never-ending cycle, and we are supposed to see a little reflection of ourselves and our own lives. Because your life is probably a little bit repetitive too. We work, we labor, but we're never ultimately satisfied. Right? You ate breakfast this morning, and you will be hungry by lunch in approximately 36 minutes. Maybe you finished a Netflix series last night, and the minute you finished it, what did you do? You started looking for the next series. Never satisfied, right? You just got a new iPhone. Next year, there will be a new model that you will want. Because now your new model is the old model. You just bought a new car, it's an old car already. You bought a new house, it's already an old house. We live for what's new and what's next. We live for what's new and what's next because in so many ways the present fails to give us what we want. The problem is the next thing is never enough. But we live for the next promotion and the next vacation and the next season, the next toy. We spend hours on the internet looking for the next thing, hoping that the next thing will fill the emptiness of the now, but it never does. All it leaves us is hungry for the next new thing. All it does is leave us hungry for the next new thing. Derek Kidner said, our senses are fed and fed, but never filled. Our senses are fed and fed, but never filled. For human beings, there is no surplus because we are never full enough to have something left over. There's no gain because the universe itself is cyclical and everything that is comes and goes. There's no profit because whatever is already has been. If there's nothing new under the sun, what's the point in toiling to make or find or leave something new? It simply can't be done. In the book, The Screwtape Letters, the elder Demon Screwtape tells his nephew Wormwood, the horror of the same old thing is one of the most valuable passions we have produced in the human heart. An endless source of heresies in religion, folly in counsel, infidelity in marriage, and inconstancy in friendship. The same old thing, because we are always searching for the next new thing that we hope will finally fulfill us. And I just wonder, what is the next new thing for you? What's your next new thing? What is it that you are counting on to finally make you happy? What is it that you're anticipating, that you're looking forward to, that you're waiting for? You just think, when I have this thing, then I'll be good. I'll be happy. I won't need anything else when I have that thing. When has that ever been true? When has that ever worked for you? It all leaves us wanting more because it's all fleeting, because it's not new. There's nothing new under the sun. And there's nothing in this world that can ultimately satisfy us. There's nothing in this world that can fill that eternity-shaped hole in your heart. And I think Solomon would heartily affirm the words of C.S. Lewis when he wrote, if we find ourselves with a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that we were made for another world. This life is fleeting. This life is repetitive. And thirdly, this life is elusive. This life is elusive. You go back up to verse 3. What toil, or what does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? You know, the thing is, when you walk outside on that cold fall morning and you breathe out and you see your breath in the air, no matter how hard you try, you cannot grab it. You can grasp as hard as you want, you can squeeze as tight as you want, but you cannot grab your breath. In fact, the harder that you grasp at it and the harder that you squeeze, the faster it dissipates and slips through your fingers. Life is elusive. In verse 3, I think Solomon gets at that thing that we are so desperate to have, yet remains so elusive to us, and it's all in that word gain. What does man gain by all the toil with which he toils under the sun? It's a word that is only used in the book of Ecclesiastes, only used by the preacher. And it has the idea at its root of what remains or is left over. What remains or is left over. It's the idea of profit, of a return on an investment, something that you can take with you. And that's what we crave. We crave something that will transcend this life, a gain, a profit, a return on investment for all of our toil and all of our labor, something that we can take with us. We crave gain, and so we chase gain by trying to control our life. By trying to control our life. We try to control relationships, right? You keep the relationships that make you happy. You get rid of the relationships that don't. You got a toxic relationship, you cut it off. Try to control your relationships, control the people that you put around you. We try to control our finances. We plan and scheme and coordinate so that we can have what we want when we want it. We don't ever have to know the pain of lack or need. We try to control our kids. We try to structure their lives. We're so thoughtful and careful about what we give them and what we don't so that they will turn out the way that we want. Try to control your health. You work out. You do a juice cleanse. You do the carnivore diet or the keto diet or the paleo diet or the vegan diet or whatever diet is your diet, the Daniel diet, right? The 40-day fast, whatever you want. We try to control our health so that we won't get sick, so that we can enjoy a long and prosperous and pleasant life. We control our media intake. Yeah, I remember, I'm not that old, but I do remember when there was like 12 channels on the TV. And when you watched your program, whatever you wanted to watch next, it didn't matter. You had to watch whatever came next on that channel, the regularly scheduled programming. And now, when we watch TV, it's all on demand. It's under your control. You're in control. You can watch what you want when you want. Human beings, we try to leverage information and innovation and technology, everything we can to give us more control over our lives so that we can maximize gain, so that we can prioritize pleasure, so that we can excise anything that would cause us to be unhappy or would be painful. We try to control life so that we can get gain from all of our toil under the sun. Unfortunately, we don't have all that much control, do we? We don't really have a lot of control. I mean, can you stop yourself from getting sick? Look, I've talked to people and they're like, if you mix lemon juice and cayenne pepper and you drink that foul concoction, you won't get sick for a year. And I was like, all right, I'll try it. And I drank that, and you know what? I was sick right away. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can't stop yourself from getting sick. You can try to control your health as much as you want. At the end of the day, you're not in control of that diagnosis. You can't control your own health. Can you stop the government from raising your taxes? Not in this state. You can't control that. Can you control how your kids turn out? We try to. We try to control the way our kids turn out. We want so badly for them to follow the Lord, to be successful, to do well, to succeed in life. And so we try to manipulate and we try to carve out this perfect path for them to walk, just hoping that they'll get right where we want them to be. But at the end of the day, you can't control it. My kids are 4 and 7, and I already can tell I can't control it. I mean, can you guarantee that the company that gives you the paycheck, that you put so much of your security in, won't go under? You can't control that. You can't control whether you live or die today. The reality is we have no control over our lives. And here's the thing, even if you did, even if you somehow found a way to make your life be exactly the way that you want it to be, when you find yourself someday on your deathbed, what are you going to take with you? What gain do you have? What profit has you made? What's your return on investment? What can you take with you past this life? Nothing. What gain does man have by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? The American poet Stephen Crane wrote these words: I saw a man pursuing the horizon. Round and round they sped. I was disturbed at this. I accosted the man. It is futile, I said. You lie, he cried, and ran on. Solomon would call that striving after wind. No matter how fast and hard you run, you can't catch the horizon. No matter how tightly you squeeze, you can't catch the wind. No matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, you cannot control your life. David Gibson writes, Ecclesiastes is a meditation on how life seems to elude our grasp in terms of lasting significance. If we try to gain control of the world and our lives by what we can understand, by what we can do, we find that the control we seek eludes us. Because ultimately, this is God's world. God made it, and God controls it. He ordains all things. He runs the universe. All of it's upheld by the word of his power. He providentially controls the weather and the activities of animals and the lives and the affairs of men like you and like me. Psalm 90, verses 3 through 6. You return man to dust and say, return, O children of man. For 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it is past, or as night as watch in the night. You sweep them away as with a flood. They are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed. In the evening it fades and withers. To try to find satisfaction or fulfillment under the sun, apart from the God who made it, is indeed striving after wind. Because this life is elusive. And that brings us to the end of this section. Now look, I'm not trying to depress you. I mean, a little bit maybe. But the reality is, and I told you, this first step to living a full life in a fallen world is a painful step. The medicine is bitter, but it's not the end of the matter. Because if this was the sum of Solomon's wisdom, if this was all he had, if this book ended at chapter 1, verse 11, then we have been given few answers and even less hope. But it's not the end of Solomon's wisdom for life. As Ian Provane says, the brutality of his unmasking of the world of human desire and action is balanced throughout the book by the gentler unveiling of a better way of being. There is no gain to be found under the sun, but none need be found. To pursue gain is pointless, but there is no need for the pursuit. There is sufficient reward in life itself if it is received as a gift from God and lived well. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 12 and 13. I perceived that there is nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. That is, take pleasure in the thing that produces no gain. To take pleasure in your toil. Why? This is God's gift to man. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 18 through 20. Behold, what I have seen to be good and fitting is to eat and drink and find enjoyment in all the toil with which one toils under the sun, the few days of his life that God has given him. For this is his lot. Everyone also to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them and to accept his lot and rejoice in his toil. This is the gift of God. For he will not much remember the days of his life because God keeps him occupied with joy in his heart. Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 15. And I commend joy. For man has nothing better under the sun but to eat and drink and be joyful, for this will go with him in his toil through the days of his life that God has given him under the sun. You see, your toil, this life, your toil is not ultimate. It's not transcendent. It can't be everything you need it to be. It's a grind. It's a slog. It can't fulfill you, but it is a gift. It is a gift. It is a gift that points you back to the giver who is everything you need. It's a gift not meant to be eternal, not meant to be timeless, not meant to meet all of your needs, but it is meant to point you to the God who can fulfill you completely. The eternal God who can fill that eternity-shaped hole in your heart. It is a gift. Life is like building a sand castle. I was just at the beach, got sand on the brain, as you can tell. Life is like building a sandcastle. And I'm guessing that all of you have built a sandcastle at some point in your life, right? Have you all built a sandcastle? I think this is a very common human experience. We've all tried to build a sandcastle. And, as you approach that perfect plot of sand, it's just nice and level, and it's like the Goldilocks sand, right? Not too hard, not too soft. It's just right. And as you take the time to smooth it out and make sure that it's level and it's ready for construction, right? In your mind, you have this picture of how this process is going to go. You're going to take your tools, your buckets, and your plastic shovels that will break the minute you use them, and that little three-pronged rake thing that no one knows what it's for. But you're going to take your tools and you're going to dig sand, and you're going to fill your buckets, and then you're going to pat down the sand so it's nice and tight. And you're going to take those buckets and you're going to tip them over, and when you pull that bowl off, it's just going to come out perfectly. Like no twisting, no padding, no shaking. It's just going to come off real smooth. And that sand's going to be so dense and tight. You're going to put your next tower on top of it, and then you're going to build your wall around it. Then you're going to build this deep moat around the wall to keep the yucky waves away. It's just going to be this incredible experience. And then reality sets in, right? You take your bowl and you fill it with sand, and you plop it over and you pull it off, and first of all, it doesn't really come off. It's like you're fighting it for some reason. I mean, good night. You're like patting it and spinning it. Finally, it pops off, and it's just this perfect mound of sand, except for that one part that just wouldn't come out of the bucket. You're like, okay, I can fix this. And so you take some sand and you try to smooth it in there and make it fit the rest of the shape, and no big deal. I can throw a seashell on it. It'll be fine. You take your smaller bowl and you fill that up and you put it on top and you pull it off, and you're like, great, and you start to work on your wall. But even as you're working on your wall, you're noticing that your tower is starting to fall down. Like the sand's drying out, it's starting to collapse, and so you leave the wall, you go back to the castle, you start to build it, and then you notice that as you're building the castle, the wall is being eaten up by the waves because you forgot to dig the moat, and it's just a frustrating experience. And then when you're done, you know that the next day when you go back to the beach, is your sandcastle going to be there? No! Because this has been a lifelong frustration for me. Because the tide's going to come in and it's going to wash away your sandcastle. If your joy and fulfillment is tied in any way to the finished project of your toil over that sandcastle, you will be deeply frustrated. But if you can remember that the sand is a gift, and the bucket is a gift, and those little plastic tools are a gift, and the time on the beach with your family is a gift, and even the very process, the toil and labor of making the sandcastle is in and of itself a gift, then you can take great joy in building your mediocre sandcastle. If your joy and fulfillment is in any way tied to what you can get out of this life, you will be deeply frustrated. But if your joy and fulfillment is anchored to the God who gave you this life, with all its highs and all its lows, with all its joys and with all its sorrows, every moment of it, if your joy is tethered to Him and to Him alone, then you can enjoy the life that He has given you. All of it. Ecclesiastes chapter 7 tells us that it's all from His hand. In the day of prosperity, this is 7:14. In the day of prosperity, be joyful, and in the day of adversity, consider. God has made the one as well as the other, so that man may not find out anything that will be after him. This whole life is a gift. Every moment of joy and happiness, a foretaste of eternity. Every moment of pain and sorrow, a reminder that this world is not your home. This is not your final destination. You were made for more than this. You were made for a better city and a better kingdom with a better king. It's all a gift from him. It's a gift when you remember that you have sinned against this God who made you. You rebelled against your Creator. And God would have been absolutely right and absolutely just to the moment you first sinned to cast you into hell. But he's not. What has he given you? He's given you life. He has let you live 70 plus years on this world. It is a gift from God, an extension of his grace. And not only that, but he sent his very son into the world to deal with your sin, to deal with the thing that removed you from him, that separated you from him, so that you wouldn't be left trying to find all your joy and fulfillment in this world under the sun, but that you could know him, you could know the giver of the gift, and you could find your joy in him, and you could enjoy the life that he's given you. It's all a gift. It's all a gift, and it will end. But there will come a day, because what Solomon's giving us is he's giving us a lens through which to view life. The key to living a fulfilled life is not trying to make your life better. It's by looking at life the right way, through the right lens. And Solomon is saying, if you can picture a day in the future when you will stand before your Maker and you'll look back on your life, and in that moment you will see that every moment, every experience, both the good and the bad, they were all a part of this beautiful picture that God was painting of your life. In that moment, you will thank him for all of it. You will not want any of it changed, because it is the perfect gift from a good God given to you. And so Solomon says, enjoy your life. Don't try to get out of it something that it was never meant to give you. But you can have fulfillment and joy in this life if you will treat it as a gift, and if you will turn and fix your eyes on the good and gracious giver and worship him and rejoice in him. I pray that you will heed the wisdom of Solomon, the wisdom of an old man who learned this wisdom the hard way. I pray that you will live this life well by living for the God who gave it to you and finding your fulfillment in him and in him alone. Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the incredible wisdom of the second wisest man that ever lived. Father, I pray that we would heed the words of Solomon the preacher. Help us, Lord, not to try to get out of this life what it was never meant to give us. Help us to have a realistic perspective on life in a fallen world, east of Eden, west of paradise. Help us to recognize that this life is fleeting, it is repetitive, it is elusive, but this life is also a gift. And this life is meant to remind us that there is a good and gracious God in heaven who loves us and who sent his only begotten Son to die for us. And may we regard this life in all its various experiences, in all its fullness, in all its joys and sorrows. May we regard it as an incredible gift from a good God. And may we live life worshiping you and finding our joy and our happiness and our satisfaction and our fulfillment in you and in you alone. Amen.